Alright, easy does it. That bridge doesn't help. And the ship is definitely low in the water. Oh, hang on. Oh, no. Oh, crap. More missiles coming in. Ship's defense is opening fire. Come on. You can shoot them down, surely. Yes. Ooh. Oh, bugger. That's going to make landing a little bit more on the tricky side. Ship's already damaged as it is. The battle for Feldspar had so far gone quite well. The Palanurks had launched a rather ill-timed attack to capture the airport. They had taken it, but couldn't hold it, and our counterattack had driven them out. Now we're bringing in supplies and reinforcements on a constant stream, and the fighting had moved west into the city. Both city and airport had been somewhat knocked about, but it was a price we were willing to pay. New reports were coming in of an enemy aircraft carrier operating off the south coast, launching aircraft to carry out strikes against the airport. The sly underhand buggers were taking advantage of our somewhat exposed southern flank. I was part of the reserve quick reaction force on the carrier, and I was to be scrambled to intercept the enemy carrier-borne aircraft now launching strikes against the airport. I moved off straight into a rolling takeoff, no doubt infuriating the air operations officer on the carrier. He hated that sort of thing, but needs must and all that. I was carrying 2 radar-guided scimitar missiles and 4 S-3 heat seekers, all within my internal weapons bay to reduce my radar cross-section. As I flew west, I located a chicane helicopter. As we all know, these buggers are rather nimble and can deliver a great deal of damage to our ground forces. I fired off a missile and quickly broke left. I had noticed that an enemy fighter was approaching from my 10 o'clock. A very dangerous Ifrit, but I needn't have bothered. A pair of surface-to-air missiles put an end to his capers. There was a great deal of chatter coming from our carrier. Something was very much amiss, and en route to my new patrol zone, I flew past the carrier. She had been hit. She was listening to port and low in the water. Of course, damage control was not my purview. I had my own job to do and decided to get on with it. My new patrol zone was north of the airport. There were a number of radar contacts. The most dangerous I could see was an FS-20 Revoker, carrying out strikes against our positions around the airport. I decided he would be my first target. I got a lock and let fly with one of my scimitar missiles. It appeared to waver in the sky for a moment before moving off towards the target. Naturally, the Revoker put on its best dancing shoes, started taking evasive action, diving towards the sea. And before long, my missile, following him, crashed into the ocean. Frustrated, and with minimum range fast approaching, I fired off my second scimitar. This too seemed to waver, as if not knowing its duty. To ensure the kill, I fired off a pair of S-3 heat-seeking missiles as well. In the end, all 3 missiles struck the target, completely obliterating it. Was this overkill? Probably. But then he chose to join Pala. He should have known that he'd be up against the superior pilots of the BDF. So now I had only 1 missile left, and I was being called back to the carrier in some sort of urgency it seems. Details weren't forthcoming as of yet, but it appeared a special mission had been prepared for me. It was obvious to me that the landing was going to be tricky. The bridge was in the way, the carrier was moving at a rather slow speed, suffering from its damage of course, and then I noticed a new wave of inbound missiles. The carrier's air defense began to speak, at least that was still working, and as I hung there, helpless in the air less than 80 knots, I watched as one by one the missiles were shot down, until the last finally hit the carrier. It gave our ship a very shrewd knock, apparently to the forward conning tower. I didn't know what state the carrier was in. Was it in a sinking condition? Were the crew evacuating? Could I still safely land? More to the point, could I get off again? I admit I hesitated, preparing to abort the landing and zoom away. But then my new sense of resolve kicked in, and I decided to complete the landing and receive new orders. Of course, on a very slow-moving, cratered and listing deck, it was not my best landing, but my plane was safely down, ready for rearming. The armourist quickly slung on a new pair of scimitar missiles, together with a pair of 1.5 kiloton nuclear bombs. With this new load I was back topside, racing along a severely listing deck and back up into the sky. Damage control parties were hard at work, and I could only pray that they would overcome the damage to the ship. I was out on a vengeance mission. The aircraft carrier south of Ignis Major that had caused us so many problems was my target, and as I headed southwest, it came to my attention that that ship was already heavily engaged against two of our surface combatants, two of our corvettes, using their main guns and missiles to destroy the carrier. I would finish it off with a nuclear weapon, but as I drew close, I could see that my target was already in a sinking condition. Beyond sinking, in fact, it was slipping beneath the waves as I flew past, and yet the corvettes continued to pound it with their guns and missiles. Needless to say, the war had long since entered into a more bitter phase. Nevertheless, I had no interest in nuking men abandoning a sinking ship, and so I turned north towards my secondary target, Hogshead Airbase to the north, from where the enemy kept on launching new air landing assaults using tarantulas. I flew past two of these buggers on the way. Both engaged me with their heat-seeking missiles at very close range, but both missed, the scrubs. I didn't engage, I had a different air target. Dead ahead, a Dark Reach strategic bomber was flying east as if to bomb our airbase, or perhaps attack our fleet, finish off our carrier. I'd sent forth a scimitar missile and watched in joyful glee as it blew off a wing and sent the bomber tumbling into oblivion. And so, with nothing else in my way, it was time for me to turn to my new target, my new primary target, Hogshead Airbase. As said, the enemy were launching a good many tarantulas from here, and I was going to clap a stopper over their fun and games. I approached over the sea behind the hills and cliffs, masking my approach from air defence, and first of all targeting support vehicles for refuelling and rearming, I released my first of two bombs, before turning away to release my second, allowing for a nice spread, a larger area of destruction. With that, I made my escape. With two 1.5 kiloton blasts, the base was obliterated effectively, and I was out of armaments, all except for one scimitar missile. And dead ahead of me, a tarantula had escaped from my attack. This cheeky Nurk must have taken off before my attack. Well, I let fly with a scimitar missile before switching to guns. That's all I had left, and was happy to see my missile connect with the rear of the aircraft, sending it into a graceful corkscrew before tumbling into the sea. With my mission successful, I began to head home. Of course, the carrier was out of action. She was still afloat, but under tow, and closed to air operations. And as a consequence, I was redirected to land at Feldspar Airport. On land. Me, a naval aviator, treated like a landlubbly Air Force pilot. The indignancy I felt at this should not be underestimated. But anyway, the mission was a success. The enemy carrier was sunk. The skies over Feldspar were effectively clear of enemy air forces, and I had destroyed one of their main air bases from whence they were attacking. Not a bad day's work, all said. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a like, and please do subscribe for more. There is plenty more nuclear option coming to the channel, so look forward to that. Thank you once again, and I look forward to perhaps seeing you in the skies. Cheerio.